The world is, indeed, a beautiful place. Its landscapes are breathtaking, its people full of potential, and its cultures rich with history and diversity. Yet, this beauty is often overshadowed by the destructive influence of pinheads and loudmouths, those who speak the loudest but often know the least. Worse still, behind these vocal figures lurk their puppeteers, those who wield power not to serve justice or equality, but to protect privilege and profit at the expense of the common good. This duality, where the ignorant are weaponized by the powerful, is not a new phenomenon. It is one deeply rooted in history, psychology, and even modern-day political and economic systems. History is filled with examples of societies held hostage by the powerful who rely on the loud and uninformed to maintain the grip. In the Middle Ages, European monarchies and the Church controlled vast territories by keeping the populace largely uneducated. Ignorance was a tool. The less the masses knew, the easier it was for those in power to manipulate them. Martin Luther's push for translating the Bible into vernacular languages during the Reformation was revolutionary precisely because it threatened the power structure by empowering people with knowledge. Hitler's Nazi regime and Stalin's Soviet Union both relied heavily on misinformation and the suppression of critical thinking to galvanize large portions of their populations. As history demonstrates, when the loudest voices, often those with the least understanding, are amplified by those in power, the world becomes an ugly place, distorted by lies, manipulation, and perverted justice. The persistence of loudmouths and pinheads can be understood through the lens of the Dunning-Kruger effect, a cognitive bias that causes individuals with low ability in a specific area to overestimate their knowledge or competence. In contrast, experts tend to underestimate their own understanding. This dynamic helps explain why those with the least to say often say it the loudest, while those with true knowledge are more measured in their claims. This overconfidence from the uninformed, paired with the deliberate amplification of their voices by those with vested interests, is a potent combination that distorts public discourse. The loudmouths in question also benefit from groupthink, a psychological phenomenon where the desire for group consensus overrides individual reasoning and critical thinking. In political rallies, media echo chambers, or even boardrooms, once an idea gains traction, it becomes dangerous to dissent. This herd mentality allows know-nothings to appear as though they represent a majority, even when their views are shallow or misinformed. Data shows that the forces behind these loudmouths, the puppeteers, if you will, are often driven by self-interest. A 2021 Oxfam report revealed that the world's richest 1% have seen their wealth increase by trillions during the COVID-19 pandemic, while millions fell into poverty. The figures paint a clear picture. Those in power have no incentive to change a system that benefits them, even if it exacerbates inequality. They use the ignorance of others as a shield, allowing them to profiteer while manipulating public opinion through media and political machinery. Profiteering is often accompanied by perverted justice, where the rules are bent in favor of the powerful. In 2010, the U.S. Supreme Court's Citizens United decision allowed for unlimited corporate spending in elections, giving the wealthy disproportionate influence in politics. The decision, couched in the language of free speech, essentially legalized a system where the voices of ordinary citizens are drowned out by the wealthiest few. Common sense tells us that knowledge is power, and the more people are informed, the harder it becomes for loudmouths and their puppeteers to dominate the conversation. While ignorance can be weaponized, it can also be dismantled through education, transparency, and critical thinking. The world's beauty, both in its physical landscapes and its human potential, can only be restored by a public willing to challenge the loudest voices and demand accountability from those in power. The world is held hostage not by nature's cruelty or the inevitabilities of fate, but by those who exploit ignorance for their own gain. From history's most tyrannical regimes to modern-day profiteers, the pinheads and loudmouths have thrived in environments where knowledge is suppressed and truth is drowned out. The path to a more beautiful world lies in dismantling these systems, by empowering people with knowledge, promoting critical thinking, and demanding justice that serves the many rather than the few.